Scarr. Senator O'Neill.
Thank you very, very much. I guess this is a speech that you would hope you wouldn't have to make in the country in which we live. It's a speech where I know your contribution through FMPA, Senator Colbeck's taking the role as the Deputy Chair, has been acknowledged by your colleague, Senator Paul Scarr, as a really important reveal of some of the appalling practices that seem to live and thrive in a toxic culture that has now been revealed at both PwC and KPMG in the public place. I want to acknowledge once again, and it's the second time this evening I've been able to speak happily about the collaborative nature of important work that we can do for our country in this place, the Parliament of Australia, the Senate of our nation. You know, as I arrived here, I was truly humbled to be able to walk through the doors of this place and serve the country that my parents came to as immigrants, while that debate rages, with very little education, very little opportunity. But they came to a country, a democratic country, where the rule of law is respected, where the rule of law operates, where it provides incredible levels of opportunity and protection for the Australian people. And that's what we want to have happening here. So I want to acknowledge the great contributions of my colleagues who were sitting here on the Senate floor with me, alongside me, Senator Colbeck, Senator Scarr, who's just made another profoundly important contribution to the thinking about what we do as we go forward in response to the problems that are becoming manifest to Australians. We've been working on this for a very, very long time on the Joint Committee on Corporations and Financial Services. I want to also acknowledge on the crossbench, in a way that is not commonly reported in the public, working so closely with my colleague Senator Barbara Pocock on both the FMPA Committee and also on the Corporations and Financial Services Committee, to do the work that we have done to bring what can only be described as a very dry subject into the public realm. And at the heart of why we do this is the question that needs to be asked: why is this important? And it's in the answer to that question that we will find our resolve to undertake the necessary change. Why is this matter important? And I think Australians are beginning to wake up to why it is so important for them that we do this work, that we do it carefully, that we do it collaboratively, and we do it in a time sequence that is responsive to the challenge that is there, but not in a rushed and haphazard way, filled with outrage and alarm. Good governments of any persuasion take the task of reform seriously. They consult. They do the very best they can to bring things forward. And that is the way that I think we need to proceed with this matter. The reason that what we are talking about matters, about those 4 little letters on the notice paper today, KPMG, is because Australians now have $4.5 trillion under management because of our superannuation system. A great development for Australia under a Labor government established the superannuation system. Now every working Australian has a share in the future wealth that is generated by investment in a range of companies, both in Australia and overseas. Whether you're managing your own superannuation in an SMSF, if you've got your money and perhaps you've just started your first job and you've got $1,000 in there being managed by your industry super fund, or if you are in a retail fund and having some choices about what's going on by negotiating with a broker about what you want to do. All of the decisions, no matter how your superannuation is invested, rely on the truth of the documents that are provided by these massive companies in which we are all invested. And what has been shown to occur in the case of the KPMG matters is that the people who are supposed to verify the authenticity of those books on which decisions are made, that basically the financials are accurate, those people called auditors in a position of profound trust and centrality to the proper functioning of the markets, they have not been operating in anything that approaches an ethical disposition. We have seen evidence of profound breaches of professional responsibility by these auditors who are given huge access to what's going on in the companies. And we've referred to Lend-Lease. Senator Scarr, you mentioned the leadership of Lend-Lease talking about exactly how they feel about what they found out after the fact, about how their confidential information was used. So KPMG shows up as an auditor, and as is required by the law, Lend-Lease had to open all of their books for inspection. Mr John Gillam, Lend-Lease's chairman, described the misuse of confidential client information by KPMG as, and I'm quoting now, a grave misuse of their access privileges. We were deeply disconcerted. Now, grave misuse of access privileges means that when KPMG went in, instead of acting to see everything and then retreat quietly without sharing anything that they had seen in any way with anyone else, they failed. Absolutely and totally, they failed. They took information away with them, and not only did they fail in taking that information, which should have been confidential, they then sought to use it for their own advantage. And it's this pursuit of money, this pursuit of some prestige that apparently they think comes with money no matter how you get it, that is driving the sorts of behaviours that are now becoming known to the Australian people. I could say that I found it extraordinary when reports from my office and also from members of the media who have been covering this indicated that upwards of 78,000 people have watched the YouTube of a hearing on Friday. It's an extraordinary indication of interest in what is happening in this place. And it wouldn't have ever got to that point but for the courage of an individual who was inside KPMG, and no matter what they were promised, no matter the lure of millions of dollars potentially as a partner, the moral fibre, the moral fortitude, the discernment and the ethical disposition of a whistleblower who saw egregious behaviours of theft of information, sharing of information, and basic lying to their own clients, that the whistleblower had courage enough to put forward a document. So here we are. It's June 2026. This journey started for that whistleblower in 23. By the 30th of May 2024, the whistleblower had determined that this matter could not go unaddressed and wrote to a senior audit provider, one of his direct reports, about failures of audit quality with regard to Dexus, Telstra, Macquarie Bank, Westpac, Singtel Optus and, of course, Lend-Lease, to whom I've been referring. Without the courage of that whistleblower to document what had been observed, we would still not know that one of these big four entities, so vital to the success of our financial markets, had done what they'd done. That careful document was basically then used inside KPMG, not as an opportunity to be appalled at what was being reported, but rather it was then turned into a document to be managed, and the person attached to it, our whistleblower, was turned into a person to be managed. Many people don't know much about these big companies or about what the Office of General Counsel is. I certainly didn't have anything to do with that world before I came here. But a lawyer inside a big company is a common thing. That's what a general counsel is. And in this circumstance, the Office of the General Counsel was used as a tool to silence the whistleblower. We know that within a couple of days of material being proffered by this whistleblower to his direct report, that his own laptop was searched without his permission. And that pattern goes on. So in addition to using the Office of the General Counsel to silence this person, we find later on in our hearings that when frustrated by all of the processes inside KPMG, the whistleblower goes to the independent directors. There's a not virtuous circle established by none other than the chairman of the board, who tells the independent members, if you hear from the whistleblower, jump up and talk to the Office of the General Counsel. Again, another tool of oppression, another tool to silence the whistleblower in the most disgraceful way. That is just one tiny chapter of the volumes of information that we have received about failures inside KPMG. Critically, there is a massive failure in terms of the structure of the way these companies have been allowed to operate. Now, I'm very proud of the work that we did, and I see my two very, very engaged colleagues sitting here with me, with 40 recommendations in the report that we advanced about how we might move forward. I know that there was one contentious matter for us, and that was about how many partners there should be. 1,000 people are all in on what KPMG did, because that is the level you can go up to partners. We know that's about 680 at the moment, but the upper level is 1,000. 1,000 partners who are not governed in any way by ASIC or any federal entity or anyone who has reach into that partnership. We know that ASIC can capture a few company auditors. That is a critical breaking point in the proper supervision of those who are in these positions of profound responsibility. There is so much more to say. We have so much more work to do. This is not an end point for us, but rather a renewed and invigorated commencement of making sure that the reform that needs to be undertaken is undertaken, and the committee will continue its work.
Thank you, Senator O'Neill. Minister.
I move the Senate now adjourn.
Thank you. So the Senate stands adjourned, and we'll meet again on Monday, the 29th of June, 2026 at 10 a.m. Good night, Senators.